the Roman king. It was named after the Roman emperor Augustus. Okay, so because in that age, in the Roman Augustus age, we have had the great authors such as Virgil, Ovid, and Horace. In the same way, we have Dryden, Pope, and Swift in the English Augustan age. So in the Enlightenment age, you will find authors such as Alexander Pope in the Augustan age. It is also known as Age of Pope. So Alexander Pope, Jonathan Swift, Richard Steele, Joseph Edison, Samuel Johnson. We will read about them. So Alexander Pope is known for his essays as well as prose work, both of them. Jonathan Swift is the famous satirist. Okay, he is known for his satire, especially. Richard Steele and Joseph Edison, they are known for their periodicals. You know that. Samuel Johnson, again known for his tragedy, then his prose work, his dictionary. So we will read about them one by one. So before I begin, uh, we will start with Alexander Pope. So Alexander Pope, 1688 to 1744. His time span is around 1700, living with retired father on a small estate in Windsor Forest. And you know that on this particular Windsor Forest, he also wrote a poem with the same name. Much reading and writing was affected because of his problem of this hunchback. He was a hunchback, if you know. Okay, he was physically not fit. Besides, because he was a Catholic, he was never given preference or the formal education because Catholics were not allowed to attend the school at that time. So he was a kind of self-learned man. Okay, and people used to taunt him, used to pass comment on him because of his physical deformity. So, a man of literary society at London coffee houses and taverns, he was friend of Congreve Steel edition. And the work that actually made him very popular was, as you know, that Rape of the Lock, make him a very prominent figure of that age. That's why we call the age itself as Age of Poe. So he wrote Essay on Criticism in 1711, then Rape of the Lock 1712. He befriends with Jonathan Swift 1712 because Jonathan Swift, again, he was from Ireland. He was very famous in England because of his satire. Tory wanted his support always, and Whigs were always scared of his scathing satires. Okay, that was the scenario at that time. He then Alexander Pope begins the translation of Homer's Iliad in 1713. uh, Pope is famous for earning his living as a writer because he could not, as a Roman Catholic, because Roman Catholic cannot attend university at that time, so he was not able to attend the university. This is the Pope's Twickenham state, 5-acre villa with grotto where he used to live. Then he wrote also Dunciad. And the Dunciad is famous for this very beautiful line: "A little learning is a dangerous thing." Now, I will come to his world literature and first. And his Asian criticism. So Asian criticism published in 1711, very famous work. Many a times quotation has been asked from this work. So it was written in three parts. Parts are important. It was written in three parts, and it took 3 years to complete this poem. It took 3 years to complete this poem. Pope exhorts his fellow poet to follow nature. He is in this particular essay, Asian criticism, is saying that his fellow poets to follow nature. Okay. Part 3 is a tribute to Longinus. Do remember. There is part 1, 2, and 3. In third part, Pope offers a tribute to Longinus. He said that the bold Longinus, all the nine inspire. See here it is written. The bold Longinus, the all the nine inspire. Then yeah, now what are the important lines of essay on criticism? Little knowledge is a dangerous thing, as you can see. To err is human and to forgive divine. These are all the quotation that has been asked in UGC NEET. So you have to remember, do not get confused with his two essays, essay on man and essay on criticism. Okay, I will come back to essay on man also. So to err is human and to forgive divine. Fools rush in where angel fear to tread. Now, if you remember, which novel takes its title from this line, where angels fear to tread, fools rush in where angel fears to tread. I'm talking about novel. A novel
So T.H. Eliot.
is written with the same title. Yeah, sorry.
There is one friend who's
Who?
waiting for your acceptance.
Yeah, so there is a title which has been
Yes,
taken
sir.
from
Done, done.
this
It was Risha who was waiting for your answer.
quotation. There is a title of a novel, Where Angel Fear to Trade, written by E.M. Foster. This question has been asked in UGC NET. Do remember, Where Angels Fear to Trade is a title that has been taken from Pope's essay on criticism. Okay, to remember. So then there is again a famous line: "A true wit is nature to advantage traced. What often was thought but never so ways." Okay, yeah, so well expressed. Okay, so this is another famous quotation. These are the quotation that has been asked, and these are important. Part one is the thesis, part two is the antithesis, and part three is a kind of synthesis. Synthesis of both the ideas of part one and two. Uh, Then comes The Rape of the Law, 1712 edition, then 1714. Now, editions are also important because it was published anonymously initially in 1712 in two cantos only. Later on, three cantos has been added to make it in total five cantos. So it was expanded and reissued in an edition written by Mr. Pope in 1714 in five cantos. Then again in the fifth canto, an additional speech of Clarissa has been added. The final form of the poem was available in 1717 with the addition of Clarissa's speech, the last speech of Clarissa. It was added in 1717. So you can see 1712 is the one edition with two cantos. Then 1714 is the edition with five cantos, and 1717 is the edition with again with same five canto, but there is an addition of Clarissa's speech. So you know the poem was based on the actual incident recounts by Pope's friend John Carroll. Arabella Farmer. Arabella Farmer becomes the protagonist of this poem. John Carroll is Lord Peter, okay, and her suitor Lord Peter from Catholic families who suffered legal destruction and penalties. He was not Lord Peter, but Lord Baron, something like that, if I remember correctly. So Pope added the second edition, a dedicatedly letter to Arabella Farmer. Then Pope has used supernatural machinery. This is very important. It's a mock epic. It's not an epic, but mock epic. Okay. So in the beginning of the poem, Pope declared that a dire offense has been committed. A lord assaults a gentle Belle, and Belle is a lady. Okay. And then he proceeds to tell the story. So Belinda is our heroine. Well, the name of Belinda's dog, this question has been asked in UGC NET. Shock. Shock is the name of Belinda's dog. Okay. What are the supernatural creature in the this mock epic? Self is named Ariel. Okay. Uh, then we have yeah, Belinda then wakes up and gets ready for the day with the help of her maid Betty. Name of the maid is also important because from other novels and plays the name of the maid has been asked. Um butlers, there was this butler, the name of the butler has been asked. The maid from one of the novel has been asked. I'm not pretty sure right now, I'm not remembering the name, but the name of the maid has been asked. They will ask you some minor things. They all of I mean, they know that you know about Belinda, you know about Lord Baroon. Okay, so they won't ask you that these kind of questions. So yes, uh, there are different cantos in which you will find incidents happening, and then this baron will actually try to cut the hair of Belinda, and he will be successful by the end of the AP. Okay. So Belinda is the beautiful young lady with wondrous hair, two lock of which hang gracefully in curls, and one of the lock will be cut by the Baron. The Baron is the young admirer of Belinda who cut her lock. Then we have Ariel. Ariel is Belinda's guardian. Now I'm talking about the supernatural machinery. So Ariel is the Belinda's guardian, supernatural creature. Then Clarissa is the young lady who gives the Baron Caesar. These are small but important incidents. Where she is going, where she is going for this ball party or ball dance, she was going to Hampton Court. Okay. Clarissa is the young lady who gives the Baron the Caesar with the help of which the Baron cut the lock of Belinda. Umbrail is another spirit. Okay, supernatural machinery. Okay, Umbrail, Umbriel. Then Queen of Spleen is the underworld goddess who gives Umbriel gift for Belinda. Okay, Queen of Spleen is another character. Then we have Serplium, then Sylph, fairies, genies, demons. These are all supernatural machinery. Sylph, fairies, genies, demons. Okay, so do remember these are the important character from this particular poem. In Ode on Solitude 1700, Pope wrote, "Happy the man whose wish and care a few paternal acres bound, content to breathe his native air in his own ground." So he mostly uses heroic couplet while he was writing his poetry. Heroic couplet is the meter that he always employed while he was writing his poetry. So this is again becomes important. Yeah, then he wrote Elegy to the Memory of an Unfortunate Lady. Dr. Johnson translated Messiah in 1728 in Latin language. Pope's Messiah deals with Virgil's fourth eclogue. So Johnson later on translated Pope's Messiah. This is a poem written by Pope. Uh, Imitation of Horace, he wrote in 1733. Then Perry, Bathos, these are all just remember the title, you do not need to go in detail. Windsor Forest. This I said earlier that this pastoral combines the celebration of the rustic character Albion with a political affirmation of the peace under Queen Anne. It describes the countryside around his house. Dr. Johnson called this kind of poetry as local poetry. Then we will come to Essay on Man. Now, apart from that, essay on criticism, essay on man is also important. Now, Essay on Man is a poem dedicated to Henry St. John with the motive. What is the motive? To vindicate the ways of God to man. Remember, the similar motive or theme was expressed in one of the greatest epic ever written in English. Tell me the name of that epic. Exactly, Paradise Lost. Very good. To justify the ways of God to man. Here he is saying that to vindicate the ways of God to man. So do remember, this was the motto of
Paradise
Essay on
Lost,
Man.
sir.
Now, Voltaire called this essay the most beautiful, the most sublime, the most useful didactic poem ever written in any language. Okay. Then Rousseau also praised this particular essay on man. It was written in heroic couplet with the design as the introductory statement. There were four epistles in total under this essay. Okay, essay on man. See, he's saying essay on man and essay on criticism, but he's writing in heroic couplet. It's not a pure prosaic word. Okay, it was written in heroic couplet. So there were four epistles in total in essay on man. Essay on criticism was written in three parts. Essay on man contains four epistles. It was addressed to Lord Bolingbroke. Okay, sometimes they said that yeah, this Lord Bolingbroke is the Henry St. John. So, Dr. Johnson attacked essay on man in Leet of Hope, never where penury of knowledge and vulgarity of sentiment so happily disguised. Okay, he's attacking. Then the epistle to Dr. Arbuthnot. It is a satire in poetic form addressed to John Arbuthnot, a physician, published in 1735. It was published along with Imitation of Horace. Dr. John Arbuthnot is one who created the character John Bull. It is regarded as an autobiographical work of Pope in which he defends his practice on the genre of satire and attacks those who had been his opponents and rivals throughout his career. It is composed in heroic couplet. He satirized many of the people in Epistle to Dr. Arbuthnot as well as the Duncia. Then Dunciad and Moral Essays, Epistle to Burlington on the subject of architecture is first of the four poems grouped under the title Moral Essays. Moral Essays is a kind of compilation of four poems. The Dunciad is a satire published in three different versions at different time, published in 1728 in three books. First version is the three-book version. Then second version is Dunciad Variorum, and then finally it is known as the Dunciad itself. So the fourth book was added in the new Dunciad in 1743. It was reply to Levis Theobald. This is important. Dunciad is a reply to Levis Theobald, and later Colley Heber replaced Theobald. So he was criticizing Theobald as well as Colley Heber in Dunciad. So epistle to Dr. But not this one I was talking about. So it was written in seven parts. Okay, this was written in seven parts. There is this very famous line: "Shut, shut the door, good John." Okay, now the characters whom he was satirizing or he was using their name were Lord Hervey. He said Lord Hervey. He depicted Lord Hervey as Sporus, Edison as Atticus, and Ambrose Phillips as Lord Halifax. Okay, he somehow criticized by using different name. He was not exactly pointing out to the same name. So he said, yeah, Lord Hervey in this poem has been said as mentioned as Sporus, then Edison is Atticus, then Ambrose Phillips is Lord Halifax. Okay. Okay. So Dunciad, it was yeah. So he satirizes Lewis Theobald as well as Colley Siebel in this work. Other works are these. These are his other works. Just remember the title. That will do the job. With this, we will come to Swift, another very important author of that time, important satirist. So Swift, his pen name, different pen name are MB Drapier, Isaac Bickerstaff. This question has been asked in UGC Net. Isaac Bickerstaff. Okay, this is one of his pen name. Do you remember? So he was born in Dublin, Ireland, and Ireland was under the control of Britain. So Irish people were already suppressed and oppressed by these British people because Ireland was famous for its potatoes. These British people, they used to get the potatoes from there, and the people of Ireland, they were dying of starvation. So that was the scenario. And you must have heard of the Irish famine, the potato blight of 1843, in which almost millions of people died and migrated from Ireland. So Swift was born in Dublin. He was always trying to be very vocal for the cause of his nation. So his father died before he was born, his mother was poor, and Swift was compelled to accept aid from relatives who gave it not in a good way. They somehow took it as a burden and somehow helped him. So he studied at Kilkenny School and then to Dublin University. After graduation, he went to Sir William Temple and became his patron, who gave him the position of private secretary, largely on account of unwelcome relationship. Temple was a statesman and an excellent diplomatist. Now, Swift's first notable book or work was the Battle of Books, along with Tale of Tub. Both of them will be published. I mean, they were published on the same year, 1704. Okay, the Battle of Books and Tale of the Tub. He wrote Tale of Tub in Ireland itself. Both the Battle of Book and the Tale of Tub was published in 1704, London. The second work brought him as most powerful satirist of the age. Now he becomes so powerful satirist because of these two books that the Whigs feared the lash of his satire and the Tories feared to lose his support because he was supporting Tories. During this all incident going on, an unbearable arrogance took possession of him. Okay, because he know that everyone wants my favor because I'm a greatest satirist. So he become increasingly proud of himself. So he wrote this work Bickerstaff Almanac, where he used this pen name Isaac Bickerstaff. Okay, Bickerstaff Almanac, Almanac. So Bickerstaff Almanac was a satirical attack upon an astrologer. What is the name of that astrologer? John Partridge. John Partridge. So he wrote Horatian satire as well as juvenile satire. Then there is this very famous work written by him is yeah, the tale of the tub. So this tale began as a grim exposure of the alleged weakness of the three principal forms of religion. What were the three principal form of religion, and what were their weakness? This is what he describes in A Tale of a Tub. So those three religious principles were Catholic, Lutheran, and Calvinist. He satirizes all of these religious practices. Okay, Catholic, Lutheran, and Calvinist. And he supported Anglicanism in this particular work. But later on, he ended up in writing a satire upon all science and philosophy. It was a bitter satire upon all religious sects. His book is a tub thrown out to the enemies of church. Okay, that's why it is called as Tale of a Tub. His book is a kind of tub thrown out to the enemies of church and state to keep them occupied from further attacks on or criticism. Okay, so you will find there three brothers are Peter, Martin, and Jack. Peter stands for Roman Catholic Church. Jack stands for John Calvin, that is Calvinism. Then Martin stands for Lutheranism. Okay, read the story of this. Then we have Drapier's Letter. Drapier's Letter is a model of political writing and of popular argument which roused an unthinking English public and did much benefit to Ireland. I mean, he was writing again for the cause of Ireland, this word. Okay, Drapier's Letter. Then Modest Proposal, very famous word because Modest Proposal was concerned about the children of Ireland. And he's saying that the poor Irish farmers sought to raise children as dainties. Why? Because these dainties, these children will be eaten up by the Englishmen like a roast pig. He's saying this thing. So again, he's writing something for the cause of Ireland, that these Irish people, they are making children, okay, they are giving birth to their children and selling them, those children, for the child labor to the Englishmen. Okay, so a modest proposal for preventing the children of poor people from being a burden to their parents or country and for making them beneficial to the public. He is trying to motivate and encourage the people that do not sell your children to the Englishmen. Use them for your own purpose. It's a masterpiece. Then, obviously, the famous Gulliver's Travels. Strangely enough, this book upon which Swift's literary fame generally rests was not written from any literary motive, but rather as an outlet for author's own bitterness against fate and human society. He wrote this out of this bitterness, but then it becomes very famous. So it is about the pretended four voyages of one Lemuel Gulliver and his adventure in four astounding countries. All of these parts are very important. Voyage to Lilliput chronologically. Do remember this chronologically also. Lilliput, then Brobdingnag, then Balnibarre, Lognag, uh, Gulubudubrib, and then we have the fourth part, uh, Hyohinims. Okay, so this is the fourth part, a voyage to the land of the Hoyohims, where you will find that the people are half horse and half human being. So all these four parts are important. Part third is important because you will find that this part is called a satire on Royal Society, which was founded in London in 1662. I told you while I was dealing with uh, this Restoration age. So he will satire these scientific discoveries and all. So fortunately, he is rescued by the flying island. This is all related to scientific discoveries and all. Flying island of Laputa. Okay, read all these four parts in detail. You may take the help of either LitChat or this course hero material. He also wrote Journal to Stella. Journal to Stella is written chiefly in the year 1710 to 1713 for the benefit of Esther Johnson. Esther Johnson is interesting for two reasons. It is first an excellent, I mean, this work, Journal to Stella, is an excellent commentary on contemporary characters and political events. But it was written for Esther Johnson, especially. So do remember Journal to Stella. Stella is here, Esther Johnson. In the Battle of Book, again, you will find the quarrel of the ancient and the modern. So Alexander Pope and Jonathan Swift. After this become Mark Aikenhead, some of the prose writer of that time, and also they also wrote poetry. Mark Aikenhead is believed to be the precursor of Romantic age or Romanticism because of this famous work, The Pleasures of Imagination. See, when people in the Western age and even before that in the Restoration age, they were more concerned about the rule, regulations, writing in heroic couplet, using some stanzas form which are quite typical, which could not be understood easily by the poor people. It was a language and fashion of the aristocrat only that has been shown on stage as well as in the works of that time. At that time, people out of disgust that for the almost last 100 year or so, this is strong rules and regulations were followed by the poets and playwrights. So out of that disgust, people started to turn towards nature, towards subjectivity. From objectivity, they started to turn towards subjectivity, their personal feeling, desires. And there, at the same time, during this Enlightenment age, when many philosophical works were going on, Descartes came up with this idea, I think that for therefore I am. Then David Hume will come on the stage. Then John Locke will tell you about empiricism. Thomas Hobbes is one of the philosophers. Leibniz is there. After all these philosophers, the greatest of them will come, that is Immanuel Kant, who will talk about something which is related to romanticism. He will tell you this term transcendentalism, which somehow is associated with romanticism. Okay, he will talk about things which are beyond your perception, beyond your experience. Okay, so he was combining the empiricist theory philosophy as well as rational philosophy. And then he came up with this idea of transcendentalism, which gave birth to the idea of imagination. So, The Pleasures of Imagination is a work written by Mark Aikenhead. Then he also wrote an ode to the evening star, then his inscription for a grotto. Do remember these three works only. Then John Dennis, he wrote uh, in an essay on criticism, Pope has attacked Dennis ruthlessly. He also gave the reference of Appius and Virginia, a flop play by Dennis. So, an essay on criticism is written by Pope. So, Pope was attacking John Dennis. Why? Because John Dennis in one of his work also attacked on Pope. So Pope gave reference of APS and Virginia, a play written by John Dennis in order to satire. Okay. Then Dennis replied with critical and satirical reflections upon a late rhapsody called An Essay upon Criticism. See, he wrote this in order to reply Pope. Now Pope again replied him by writing Dunciad. So Dani's essays on poetry are the advancement and reformation of modern poetry. These are important words. Okay, the advancement and reformation of modern poetry, the grounds of criticism in poetry. He was one of the earliest writers to attempt a detailed critical analysis of Paradise Lost. Do you remember this? The three letters on the genius and writing of Shakespeare. These are all the important works written by John Dennis. With this, we will come to the periodicals of that time. Like I've mentioned, Richard Steele and Joseph Edison. So Edison and Steele both are famous for their periodical The Tatler and Spectator apart from their personal individual works. So Edison wrote works such as Dissection of View's Head and his Dissection of Coquet's Heart. This is another book written by him. Then his poem Campaign. Campaign is important. The Campaign is a work written by him. Then Rosamund. Rosamund is an opera written by Joseph Edison. Okay. Apart from, I will come back to the Statler and the Spectator. But before that, write down that Joseph Edison also wrote The Campaign, a poem, long poem. Then Rosamund. Rosamund is an opera. And he also wrote a classic tragedy that is Cato. Cato is his tragedy. So three important works written by Joseph Edison are The Campaign, Rosamund, and Cato, his only tragedy. Then comes Richard Steele. Okay, Richard Steele, again, he wrote many of the other works apart from the Tetler and Spectator. We'll come back to Tetler and Spectator, but before that, I would like to talk about the other works by Richard Steele. So Richard Steele wrote other dramas such as The Funeral, Lying Lovers, The Conscious Lovers. These are all work written by him. Okay, The Funeral, then The Lying Lovers, The Conscious Lovers. Okay, The Funeral, The Lying Lover. The Funeral came in 1701. The Lying Lover came in 1703. The Tender Husband came in 1705. Then Conscious Lover came in 1722. The last and most successful comedy is The Conscious Lover. These are all the play written by. Now, what are the periodicals with which he was associated? He was associated with the London Gazette, then the Englishman, the Guardian, then Town Talk. These are all the essays or periodicals with which he was associated at some point of time. The Guardian, the Englishman, Town Talk, then the Theatre. The Theatre was a bi-weekly periodical written by him. Now that I have told you the individual works of Edison and Steele, now I will come back to their combined work, that is the Tatler and the Spectator. Now, Richard Steele, do remember this? Richard Steele also borrowed this name Isaac Baker Staff from Swift, and he used this pen name sometimes. Okay, Isaac Baker Staff is the pen name of Swift, so he borrowed it. Now, as you can see this chart here, that the Tatler and the Spectator. Tatler was a thrice weekly work published in between 1709 to 1711, in which Edison wrote 46 issues. Steele wrote 188 essays, and in total there were 271 essays. Okay. thrice weekly, thrice weekly work. Then comes spectator. So you can obviously see that in the Tetler, it was dominated by Steele. Steele wrote 188 essays and Edison wrote only 46. In total, there were 271 essays. The spectator, on the other hand, will be dominated by Edison. So in this, Edison will write 274 essays, Steele will write 236 essays, and in total, there were triple five essays. Okay. Now, Spectator was published from 1711 to 1713. Many a times the starting year and the thrice weekly thing has been asked in UGC net many a times. Thrice weekly. So one time they also asked the day Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. They also asked this day apart from thrice weekly. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So characters in the Spectator were Mr. Spectator, person who wrote the papers. Okay, kind of narrator. Sir Roger D. Coverley, Tory Country Square. This was very famous character. Do remember? Then Sir Andrew Freeport, Captain Sentry, Will Honeycomb. Okay, these characters were drawn from the imagination of Edison. Okay, he created these characters. So I told you about Richard Steele. These are the periodicals. Then we will talk about John Gay. John Gay wrote The Beggar's Opera, only single work, famous work for which he is very famous. Then he wrote 3 Hours of Marriage. Okay, in which he also talk about, I mean, Pope and John Arbuthnot both contributed something to this work. 3 Hours After Marriage. Okay, Pope and John Arbuthnot, both of them gave some ideas in order to write this work in 1770. What do you call it? A tragi-comic, pastoral farce, 1750. Okay, this is a play written by John. Quality was the victim of the book's fourth book, yeah. And a political life of Mr. Qually's comedian insists that nothing is more liable to base corrupt the minds of people than licentious theatre. So what was written by Quality was generally a play. Can you hear me now? Am I audible? Am I audible? Initially, it was clear before this. Is it still breaking? He attacked Collie Saver in his work Duncia. Collie Saver is famous for his plays such as Love's Last Ship, Love Makes a Man, She Would and She Would Not, The Careless Husband. These are all his plays. These are especially comedies. Okay. He also wrote tragedies. Xerxes, this is related to Spartan and all the Greek mythologies. So Xerxes and Caesar in Egypt. These are his two tragedies. Xerxes, Caesar in Egypt. These tragedies were a failure. Okay, nobody recognizes this. So we have talked about Pope, Swift, Steele, Edison. We will come back to Johnson later. Now we will talk about Johnson.
Sir, your sound is not clear. Please check.
Sir, we can't hear you clearly.
Samuel Johnson was the member of literary club. We have talked about this in the last class.
Yes, sir, you are audible, but your sound is not clear.
So Johnson was devoted to Anglican and committed to Tory. He received pension of
Your
300
voice
from
is
George
breaking.
III. He is described as arguably the most distinguished man of letters in English history. If you remember last time what they have asked from Johnson, they have asked the year of his dictionary, the publication year of his dictionary in the second shift. Okay, so we'll directly come to his important works. So he wrote like that of Edison and Steele's periodical Statler and Spectator. Johnson wrote the Rambler as well as the Idler. The Rambler 1750 to 1752, the Idler 1758 to 1716. These are his two periodicals, important periodicals. Then his work Messiah is the translation from in Latin of Pope's Messiah. He wrote London. This is very popular poem written by him. The Vanity of Human Wishes. Again, very important work. Now, he also wrote Life of Mr. Richard Savage. Okay, Irene is a tragedy written by him. This is important. Irene is a tragedy. Just remember the title. Then London, like I've told you, London is a poem. The subtitle of this poem is a poem. Okay, London, a poem, 1738. Now it was based on Juvenal's third satire. Now this is important. London is a poem based on Juvenal's third satire. Juvenal, third satire. It reflects on London as a city destructive of artists and their talent. It reflects on London as a city destructive of artists and their talent. Then Vanity of Human Wishes. Now London was based on Juvenal's third satire. Vanity of Human Wishes was based on Juvenal's tenth satire. This is important. This is small information is very important. Based on Juvenal's tenth satire. Then on the death of Dr. Robert Levitt is an elegy written by him on the death of Dr. Robert Levitt. The history of Rasselas, Prince of Abyssinia, his play, Rasselas, Life of Mr. Richard Savage, I told you. Preface to the plays of William Shakespeare. Himanshi might talk about this in criticism. Lives of Poets, in which he will talk about 52 poets in total. Okay, 52 poets. Um, then his dictionary, a dictionary of the English language, preface to the dictionary. This is a considered to be novella sometime also. The history of Rasselas, it's a Prince of Abyssinia, it's a prosaic work. So, history of Rasselas traces the wanderings of African prince and his sister Nikaya. So, African prince along with his sister, they are wandering as they escape from the soft vicissitudes of pleasure and repose. So they were captured in a kind of utopian world. They want to see outside what is happening out of this utopian world. So they escape from this utopian world, and then they realize that world is something different outside of that utopian world in which they were living. So they escape from Happy Valley to see the reality of the world. Okay, so this is the story of the African prince and his sister. Dictionary of English Language was published in 1755. This question has been asked this time. I have told you just now. Uh, the Rambler, his periodical The Rambler, runs for almost 200 issues between 1750 to 1752. The Idler contributed to the Universal Chronicle between 1758 to 1760. His edition of Shakespeare was published in 1765. Edition of Shakespeare, 1765. Lives of Poets, 52 poets I have told you. Then Boswell wrote his life history, okay, his autobiography, his biography, The Life of Samuel Johnson. Boswell. So the poem, this Vanity of Human Wishes, focuses on human futility and human's quest after greatness like Juvenal, but concludes that Christian values are important to living properly. Walter Scott and T.S. Eliot considered it to be Johnson's greatest poem. It is a poem of 368 lines. Lives of most eminent poem. Milton was the oldest among the 52 poets. Okay. Milton, Dryden, Pope, Edison, Swift, Gray, all of them were there in the list of 52 poets. So, in Life of Cowley, Johnson used metaphysical school of poetry. This word has been used for the first time in the Life of Cowley section. I told you about history of Rasselas, Prince of Abyssinia. Dictionary of English Language, 1755. Journey to the Western Island of Scotland. Preface to Shakespeare in the plays of William Shakespeare. Okay, this much you need to know about Samuel Johnson. Now we will come to the novelist section. Okay, so Rise of novel, as I've told you in the last class, is associated with the popularity of the prose. How the rise of novel came into being. Because of this excess popularity of the prose, women started to read some of the prosaic work at home, and the printing press become cheaper at that time. You can easily get the access of the works at low cost. So that's how the rise of novel occurred during this century. And the genre such as play was actually fading away by this time. So we will begin with Daniel Defoe. Daniel Defoe, who is famous master of plain prose and powerful narrative. Uh, he wrote Robinson Crusoe, very famous, considered to be the first English novel ever written in English. Robinson Crusoe, 1719. Okay. Then he wrote Moll Flanders, very important work again. Moll Flanders is a picaresque novel. He also wrote Roxana. Roxana is also a picaresque novel written by him. Then he wrote a Journal of the Plague Year in 1722, Journal of the Plague Year. And Daniel Defoe, he was very vocal, and for that reason, he was imprisoned several times. So he wrote Journal of the Plague Year, 1722. He was imprisoned for some of his writing in 1702. Then he wrote Captain Singleton, again a novel. Then Colonel Jack. Okay. So Defoe wrote Moll Flanders, Roxana, Robinson Crusoe, Journal of the Plague Year, Captain Singleton, Colonel Jack. These are all the works written by Daniel Defoe. Then comes the greatest of the novelists, Henry Fielding. Okay, who is considered to be the actual father of novel. Okay, so Henry Fielding. Before Henry Fielding, we have Samuel Richardson. Samuel Richardson wrote works such as Pamela and Clarissa. His fame actually chiefly lies on these two works, Pamela 1740 and Clarissa 1747. Okay, both of these novels are epistolary, written in later form. Now this is important. They won't ask you Pamela and Clarissa. They will write. They will ask you in which form it was written, epistolary or what. Okay, those both of these novels, Pamela and Clarissa, are sentimental form of novel, which becomes very popular during this 18th century, later half of 18th century. I will come back to this sentimental thing. So it was a morality kind of tale, where in Pamela you will see that a servant Pamela has been oppressed and suppressed by her master. Her master actually wanted to rape her, but she denied. And finally, her master actually, by the end of the novel, you will find that the master will marry her instead of suppressing and oppressing her for his physical desire. So it's a morality tale. Same thing you will find in Clarissa. Okay, Clarissa is a kind of fallen woman. Fallen woman, will be raped by his suitor. So lots of things will happen, and there is a kind of seduction, sexuality. These things has been depicted in both the novels. Apart from these two novels, Samuel Richardson also wrote Sir Charles Grandison. Sir Charles Grandison. We will come to then Henry Fielding. Henry Fielding, his career began in the theatre with Love in Several Masks, 1728. The Author's Farce, 1730. These are all the plays written by him. Then he wrote Rape Upon Rape or The Justice Caught in His Own Trap. Then Tom Thumb, a tragedy, burlesque. Then he wrote Paskin and the Historical Register for 1736. Okay, now this work, Paskin and the Historical Register, this actually provoked Horace Walpole, the then Prime Minister of Britain. Okay, and a censorship has been vowed upon him, for which his career as a playwright ends. Okay, he never wrote any play after that. Then what he did? He turned toward novel after this. And he wrote Joseph Andrews, Tom Jones, A History of Foundling. Both of them are picaresque novel. Then he wrote Jonathan Wild. All of these are very important work written by him. Okay, so do remember, Tom Jones is very famous novel written by him. He also wrote Shamila, in which he will criticize or satirize Pamela in this novel, Shamila. Okay, so Joseph Andrews 1742, Tom Jones 1749, Jonathan Wild, then Amelia 1751, then Shamila. These are all novels written by Henry Fielding. Now, Tom Jones is very important. You have to read the summary from Lit Chart or Course Hero. Okay, this is important. They always ask characters from this novel, Tom Jones, History of Founding. Other novelist, female authors writing at the time was Sarah Fielding, sister of Henry Fielding. She was the sister of Henry Fielding, Sarah Fielding. She wrote The Adventures of David Simple in Search of a Real Friend, followed by the sequel, Volume the Last. Okay, so Adventure of David Simple, it was followed by another sequel, which is Volume the Last, 1753. Then the History of the Countess of Dwellville, 1759. History of Ophelia, 1760. These four works are written by Sarah Fielding, sister of Henry Fielding. Then comes Charlotte Lennox, well-educated daughter of an army man. She produced some 5 novels. Her novels were directed primarily at the female audience. Again, she is considered to be one of the pioneer of feminism, even before Mary Wollstonecraft. So, The Life of Harriet Stewart is her first novel, The Female Quixote, or The Adventure of Arabella, 1752. For this work, she has been also criticized. Okay, Female Quixote. So, Life of Harriet Stewart has this American setting, then Female Quixote or The Adventure of Arabella. Euphemia is again having American setting, last novel written by her, very much influenced by Richards. Euphemia is influenced by works of Samuel Richards. Then other novelists of that time were Tobias Smollett and Stern. So Smollett wrote he said that what is the definition of novel? So he said that a novel is a large diffused picture comprehending the characters of life, disposed in different groups and exhibited in various attitudes for the purpose of an uniform plan and general occurrence to which every individual figure is subservient. This is how he defines novel. Now, what are the works written by Tobias Smollett? He wrote proto-Gothic novel Preface to the Adventure of Ferdinand Count Fathom. Preface to the Adventures of Ferdinand Count Fathom. Proto-Gothic novel, 1753. He praises Bilas. Gil Bilas is a picaresque novel written by Alain René Lesage. Okay, Alain René Lesage, a French author. He wrote this work, Gil Bilas. So he was quite influenced by that. He praises that novel. He translated himself this novel in 1749, Gil Bilas. His important original works are Roderick Random or The Adventure of Roderick Random, 1748, The Adventure of Peregrine Pickle, 1751, The Expedition of Humphrey Clinker, 1771. Expedition of Humphrey Clinker is his most satisfying novel. There were 82 letters written in that. Then Life and Adventure of Sir Launcelot Graves. These are all his original important novels. Do remember all the titles are important. You do not need to go in great detail. Then comes Lawrence Stern, very famous for this work, A Sentimental Journey Through France and Italy, and Tristram Shandy. These both works are very important written by him. So, at Sentimental Journey Through France and Italy, the narrator of this work is Mr. Yorick. Again, a sentimental. See, the title itself is sentimental. So these works, these novels such as Pamela and Clarissa, A Sentimental Journey Through France and Italy, these were called as sentimental novel itself. It's a separate kind of genre that emerged at that time. They showed that not only women are sentimental and very all right, all right. So I was talking about Lawrence Stern. He is famous for his 2 novels. A Sentimental Journey Through France and Italy, and Tristram Shandy. Now, the narrator of this work, A Sentimental Journey Through France and Italy, was Mr. Yori. Apart from that, see the title, sentimental. This sentimental thing becomes very important because it grew up as a separate genre, sentimental novel. There was this rise of sentimental novels in which the authors or the novelists, they started to depict that not only women are meek and mild and very soft and cozy, but but men also have the feeling. They also become sentimental sometimes, and they started to portray such characters, especially the male characters, who are sentimental, who can cry, who can weep. Okay, so that's how sentimental novel came into existence during that time. Then he wrote, Lawrence Stern wrote Tristram Shandy, The Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy, Gentleman. It covers the time of 1780 to 1766, written in 9 volumes, 5 installments into 2 volumes. Okay, so there were 9 volumes, 5 installment into 2 volume, total 9 volume. Postmodern narrative technique has been used. Okay, so this is important. There is this post modern narrative technique of an unreliable narrator has been used in this work. Title pages bore the epigraph derived from Greek philosopher Epictetus. Okay, Epictetus is a Greek philosopher from where the epigraph has been taken of this novel. Now, I was talking about these sentimental novels. So it was a reaction against rationalism, which says that man is very powerful, men cannot cry, men are rational beings. So this was a reaction against rationalism. So Henry Brooke wrote The Fool of Quality. Then Henry Mackenzie wrote The Man
Hi,
of Feeling.
your voice is
Julia
breaking.
D. Rubin. Okay, it's a story. Then John Wesley's Journal. Goethe's The Sorrow of Young Brother. These are all the novels which falls under the category of sentimental novels, a famous genre during that time. All right. When it comes to novelists, we have Defoe, Fielding Richardson, Smollett, Stern, Charlotte Lennox. We have talked about all of them. In the next class, we will begin with pre-romantic age or the transition page, which paves the way for the original romantic age when Wordsworth and Coleridge came to the forefront. But that way has been paved by Gray, Goldsmith, the Gothic literature, the graveyard poetry. I will talk about all of this in the next.